What if the most profound sign that an empath has truly healed isn't something they gained, but something they lost? Something they cannot recover, cannot reactivate, cannot be persuaded or pressured or guilted back into, no matter how skillfully someone tries. Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about the permanent psychological changes that occur after genuine individuation will completely reframe how you understand transformation, and why the healed empath is so utterly different from the person you thought you knew. Most people expect healing to be additive. They imagine it as the accumulation of strength, the building of walls, the construction of a more defended version of the same person. But Jung's research reveals something far more precise, far more permanent, and frankly far more devastating to anyone who relied on the empath's wounds to maintain their access. Healing doesn't just give the empath new capacities, it permanently destroys old ones. And what a healed empath can no longer do, cannot do, not won't do, is the most important thing to understand about who they have become. They are no longer capable of betraying their own perception to make someone else comfortable. Carl Jung spent decades mapping what he called the epistemic wound, the deep psychological damage that occurs when a person is taught repeatedly and by someone they trusted that their direct experience of reality cannot be trusted, that what they felt didn't happen, that what they saw wasn't real, that their internal knowing was the problem, not the behavior that provoked it. For the wounded empath, this wound runs extraordinarily deep. They were so attuned to others, so committed to preserving connection at any cost, that they learned to override their own perceptions in real time, to swallow what they knew, to rewrite what they experienced into a version that left the other person's image intact. Jung called this the sacrifice of the witness self, and he identified it as one of the most psychologically costly adaptations a human being can make. But here is what individuation does to that adaptation. It doesn't weaken it gradually. It doesn't make the empath more resistant over time. It dismantles it entirely, at the root, in a way that cannot be reconstructed. The healed empath is no longer capable of looking at what they know and choosing not to know it. The circuitry that performed that particular act of self-erasure has been permanently rewired. When they see something, they see it. When they feel something, they register it as data. When their intuition delivers a verdict, they no longer have the psychological machinery to argue it into silence. You cannot gaslight someone who has lost the ability to gaslight themselves. They are no longer capable of mistaking chaos for depth. This is the one that will stop you cold if you recognize yourself in it. According to Jung's research on what he called the feeling type, empaths are drawn to emotional intensity not out of masochism, but out of a genuine hunger for depth, for the kind of connection that reaches below the surface and touches something real. Before healing, this hunger makes them extraordinarily vulnerable to a specific and devastating confusion. They mistake turbulence for profundity. They interpret emotional volatility as evidence of complexity. They read someone's inability to be consistent, to be safe, to be kind without conditions. And somewhere in that instability, the wounded empath finds something that feels dangerously like substance. Jung identified this confusion as the projection of the anima or animus, the unconscious tendency to cast another person as the carrier of one's own unlived interior life, to fall in love not with who someone is, but with who you need them to be. The healed empath has had this projection surgically removed by the process of individuation itself. They are no longer capable of finding chaos romantic, no longer able to interpret someone's unavailability as mystique, someone's cruelty as passion, someone's emotional destruction as the unfortunate byproduct of extraordinary depth. The confusion between intensity and intimacy, the one that cost them so much for so long, has been permanently resolved. What they recognize now with a clarity that cannot be argued away is the difference between depth and damage, and they will not spend another hour of their life treating the two as interchangeable. They are no longer capable of performing smallness to manage someone else's insecurity. Carl Jung observed that one of the most insidious dynamics in any relationship is what he called the leveling impulse, the unconscious pressure exerted by one person on another to remain small, to stay familiar, to not exceed a size that feels threatening to someone who has chosen not to grow. The wounded empath was masterful at responding to this pressure, not because they lacked self-awareness, but because their attunement was so acute they could feel someone else's discomfort with their expansion like a physical thing. And so they dimmed, they qualified. They preceded every evidence of their own intelligence, capability, or insight with enough self-deprecation to make it palatable. They made themselves smaller so that others could feel larger, and they did it so fluently, so automatically, that they stopped recognizing it as a choice. Healing ends this, not gradually, completely. The healed empath is no longer capable of shrinking on command, not because they have become arrogant, not because they have stopped caring about how others feel, but because Jung's individuation process has made self-abandonment psychologically impossible. The self that now exists is too coherent, too integrated, too thoroughly occupied to vacate itself for the convenience of someone else's ego. They will be kind, they will be considerate, they will remain one of the most thoughtful people in any room, but they will be those things at their full size, and they are no longer capable of offering you the option of a smaller version. They are no longer capable of loving someone back to health at the expense of their own. This one is the deepest. This one is the wound beneath the wound. Jung understood that empaths do not simply feel compassion for suffering, they feel responsible for it. This is the distinction that makes all the difference. Compassion observes pain and responds with care. Responsibility observes pain and concludes that it must be fixed, must be healed, must be resolved before the empath is permitted to tend to their own interior. The wounded empath builds entire relationships on this premise. They stay too long, give too much, absorb too much damage, not because they are foolish, but because somewhere in the deepest architecture of their psychology, they have confused love with rescue and presence with sacrifice. Jung called this the savior complex emerging from the unintegrated shadow. The healed parts of oneself, projected outward onto others, sought in the transformation of broken people rather than claimed in the development of self. When healing is complete, this projection collapses. What remains is something Jung considered among the most hard-won of all psychological achievements: the capacity to witness suffering without assuming ownership of it. The healed empath can see your pain with absolute clarity. They can feel the full weight of what you carry with genuine compassion. They can remain present with you in your difficulty without flinching. But they cannot climb inside it with you, cannot dissolve the boundary between your healing and theirs, cannot bleed to prove they care. The part of them that was willing to pay that particular price has been retired permanently by the process of individuation, in the way that Jung described as irreversible psychological maturation. They love differently now, more cleanly, more honestly, from a place of genuine abundance rather than anxious obligation, and the love they offer from that place is worth infinitely more than everything they gave before. Here is the truth that Carl Jung returned to again and again across a lifetime of mapping the human psyche. We do not lose our finest qualities through healing. We do not become harder, colder, more defended versions of softer former selves. What we lose through genuine individuation is not our capacity to feel, to love, to connect, to give. What we lose is our willingness to do any of those things against ourselves. The healed empath is not incapable of depth. They are incapable of depth that requires them to be shallow, not incapable of love. Incapable of love that asks them to disappear, not incapable of loyalty. Incapable of loyalty to people who are loyal only to what the empath can provide. These are not losses in any true sense of the word. They are, in the language Jung used with the precision of someone who had witnessed thousands of people become more fully themselves, completions. The healed empath has not lost parts of themselves. They have shed every version of themselves that was never truly them to begin with. What remains is not less. It is at last exactly enough.